Hold it.
All right.
All right. Well, first question we always try to start off with this is how did you get interested in weather and kind of what got you in where you are today, I guess?
Well, about 100 years ago, when I was a child, I grew up in rural South Alabama. And on a day like this, a hot summer day, every day we'll have thunderstorms around. Every day, they pop up, might rain one side of the county, not the other. But I love those things. The other kids hated them. I was fascinated by them. And that really started it. And then as an older child, we would move to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is the weather capital of the universe. People in Moore, Oklahoma might want to disagree, and I don't get into that fight, but the weather in the 1970s was just violent, just violent. I thought the world was ending. And my hobby then, and still is today, ham radio. I mean, one day your fancy phone's going to stop working, and those with a ham license can keep communicating. But back in those days, there were no cell phones. And so we were communicators. And I worked so many events, including the great super outbreak of 74. And I think that kind of paved the way for what I'm doing. My first major in college was electrical engineering because I never thought this was a viable career option. Nobody ever told me. But I figured it out in college that it was. So I changed majors and finished in meteorology, and I've been doing this for 46 years, living the dream.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I guess next question is kind of what is like a day in the life of you, basically, being chief
Well,
meteorologist?
I'm probably an outlier. I don't know if many people do what I do, but basically, I work every day between 4 a.m. and midnight. I sleep 3 hours a night, which is not healthy. I sleep between 1 and 4 a.m. And in the morning, between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m., I do a 3 hour shift at my home. And that involves being on television. I do a hit on the TV news segment we do. I do 24 commercial radio stations. I do a live on Facebook and YouTube. I have to write a meteorological discussion, answer a gazillion social media questions. And then at 7, I will go speak somewhere every day somewhere. I was at a library today for a summer program. Tomorrow, I'll be at a middle school for a summer program. During the school year, sometimes I'll do 3 a day. So I do that in the middle of the day. Then I come up here and work the TV shift between 2 and 11, and it's the same thing. I'm doing radio updates, 24 stations, the lives, the blog discussion, and I have to do the television thing. I'm still doing the Ron Burgundy newscast. Good evening. And after the late news, again, you have to tackle the social media. It's it's kind of a monster in a way, but it's an amazing thing in a way. While we're doing this talk here, I will have at least 50 messages that have come in that require an answer. 50. And to keep up with that, you got to stay on the ball. And so, but it's a joy. I will never complain about my hours, never complain about what I do. I am living a dream. They are paying me to do what I love to do. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. And I can't wait to wake up tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock and get up and do it again.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So talking coverage, I guess jumping right in, what was wall-to-wall coverage like for you in 1998 with the Oak Grove tornado? What was that like? And I guess how compared to now in 2024, how did technology change? With it helping you or not, or what was the difference in that?
Well, it was a classic Alabama, strong, violent tornado. It was after dark and it was rain wrapped. We don't have sexy tornadoes like our friends in Oklahoma and Iowa and Nebraska. You just can't see most of them. So, about the best shot we had, and we had a lot of cameras back then. We had a camera on Red Mountain that showed the power grid going out. You could just see it going out. You couldn't really see the power flashes, but you could tell something bad's going on out here. And understand, we in '98 we had velocity. We had the basics of Doppler weather radar. We had a WSR 88D, so we had that. We didn't have the dual polarization radar we have today, but the warning was good and timely, and I think that was the night that changed everything here. And this is a very aggressive, severe weather market. I'd say one of the top 5 in the country, and Back in those days, the other channels didn't go wall to wall for a tornado warning. They would come on, go back to Freak of the Week or whatever's on TV, and then come back on 30 minutes later. And that's what I was stuck with for years at the station before this one. And these owners gave me the freedom to be me. And so that night we were on the air. We were the only station wall to wall for hours and hours and hours. And I flew in the helicopter the next morning at the first light of day to see how bad it was. And that put this little TV station on the map, and it changed things. Was it perfect? Of course not, but it changed things. 32 people died in Jefferson County that night. And when one person dies, that means something didn't work out here. But still, for the time, it was the best we could do. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. So now speaking more coverage, this was probably coming. April 27th, 2011, kind of walk us through that day. I know you had a morning event, the QLCS, and then you had the afternoon supercells. Kind of, what was that day like being in the weather office?
Well, we knew it was going to be a bad day, but you never know exactly how bad the day is going to be. And it turned out it was a defining day for both you guys. You're going to have 1 or 2 days in your life that will define you. And sometimes you don't know when you wake up it's your day, but that was one of mine. And the morning event was more robust than we thought it would be. We fully expected the afternoon, evening event, which obviously was the core of it. But that morning thing was a disaster in itself. 5 people died in the morning. And the damage was pretty horrific, and we had some tornadoes involved. It wasn't all straight line winds. And Jason Simpson, who was with me in here, did an amazing job. And he was by himself to start with. Understand, I was not here when the whole thing started because we didn't expect that. But I got in, and we had a little midday break, and all these engineers started streaming in here, telling us what wasn't working. Cameras down, microwave paths down, internet connections down. And I finally said, guys, stop. Let's rethink this. I need to know what is working because we got to get through the core of this day. And I'll give those guys credit. They really worked hard to get a lot of the cameras back online and get, kind of get us reconnected for the big event. And during the big part of it, I didn't have time to think about it. I was so busy. I did not have time to think about, hey, this is history. This is a once in a lifetime kind of thing for you in a career. I didn't think about any of that. I was just totally focused on telling a coherent story using the tools we have. And there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of live shots and a lot of stuff going on back then. And I look back on it, and it was our finest day and it was our worst day. 252 people died in one day on my watch. That's horrible. And I know there should be a time to celebrate the ones that lived. We had 62 tornadoes that day, and a lot of them were strong, violent. And I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm still focused on the lives we lost. And I think what we learned that day is what we do is not enough. We do physical science. We don't understand behavioral science. We are asking people to alter their behavior to take care of themselves, and we're just not good at that. And so the social scientists have really helped us a lot since then to integrate social science into physical science, this interdisciplinary approach. And I think we're better now than we were in 2011. But I've almost memorized every name of those that died that day. It's very motivating for me. And if you don't get in this business with a heart for people, with a servant's heart, you need to go do research or something else. This is not for you. You have to serve the people first before you serve yourself.
Right. So another question we have for you is, I believe it was March 25th, 2021. We're watching and seeing a tornado that was pretty close to where you live, and your wife was home at the time. So I guess what were the ongoing emotions knowing a tornado was impacting right near where you live with your wife at home?
Well, the nice thing about that day, we have a tornado shelter, a good one, rated for a EF5. So I texted her. She was in a shelter, and I knew that she was going to be okay. But you're human. You don't know if you're going to have a house. And these were pretty rough tornadoes. This was an upper end EF3 that came through there. And we took a direct hit. And, But knowing that she's okay, you've just got to keep on going. Anybody would do this. It's not just me. Anybody would keep on going. But I will say that was the distraction of a lifetime. I mean, you're trying to tell a coherent story with all these live shots and all these dash cams and the weather service chat and the Skywatcher chat. Every CPU cycle in my brain has to be at running at top order for this to work. And that thing was just a distraction. And I don't know how good I was that day. And 6 people died that day in a town northeast of here called Ohatchee. But in the tornado that hit our home, I will say it went through a very densely populated part of a Birmingham suburb. And we didn't have any loss of life with that one. And so, that's not good. It's not fun. I'll put it that way. That is not a good day when that happens. But by the grace of God, the roof stayed on the house. A lot of people in the neighborhood, they lost the roof, the walls go away. They were in a hotel for 12 months where we could stay there while they fixed it. So we were very blessed. I will never complain about that deal at all. But what I say all the time, tornadoes happen to real people at a real place at a real time. It's not always somebody else. It could be you. So everybody's got to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Right.
So I also think that day NWS chat went down because this is before we had Slack. So I'm pretty sure NWS chat went down that day.
I can't recall that, but the truth is down here, we use Slack illegally for years. I've used it for a long time for our internal people that work with us at the TV station. And Birmingham set up an experimental Slack channel that we kind of used on the back end. So if the weather service chat went down, we just all migrated over there. So the communication flowed. I'm sure somebody got in trouble, but so what,
Hey, Jack, I lost the question. So can you?
Yeah, you're good. So I guess from all of the coverages that you've done over the years, what is one that has either been, I guess, the most challenging for you, whether that's, because of a lot of warnings at once, technical issues, just what was the most, I guess, hardest or challenging severe weather coverage for you off the top of your head?
Well, I go back a long way. And I will say in the decade of the 80s, we had very few tornadoes here. The 70s was violent. I thought the world was ending when I was growing up. And the 80s was kind of quiet. I'd say probably one of the more challenging ones was we had a big F4 in Huntsville in 1989 on a Wednesday afternoon. Huntsville's a pretty good-sized market. And back in those days in 89, even though I'm in Birmingham, I could still reach a lot of people there. And the radar limitations it was obvious. We had a little flat plate radar on top of the TV station that obviously couldn't help with the Huntsville storm. And up there, we had a cell merger with a squall line, and the tornado got down without a warning. And this was a big one. This was an F4 that killed 23 people in Huntsville. And that was probably one of the most frustrating days. I just felt like all of us did not do an adequate job. The warning was late. I'm not so sure it was communicated that effectively. I don't think in those days we were good at reminding people that November is tornado season here. It starts in November. It ends in May. We weren't effective at that. And it just caught a lot of people off guard. And I hated that. Something about that just to this day bothers me. And I'll never forget the next day I went up there and was live and we were in a snow squall. This was mid-November, November 15th of 89. The next day, it was snowing so hard you couldn't see your hand if you stuck it out in front of your face. And we had a couple of camera guys drop from hypothermia. The whole thing was just a disaster. That was probably the most frustrating.
Now is 40 degrees. The wind is coming in here from the northwest at about 10 miles an hour. The wind chill right now is near 32. Now tonight, the big problem will be the cold weather, of course. The folks here will have to deal with that. We have a number of people that are homeless. In fact, the latest statistic we heard was 550 people homeless.
And a lot of people who have their homes that were not destroyed around them, but they have holes in their roofs and their walls.
All right, temperatures tonight will likely drop down between 18 and 20. Between 18 and 20 degrees, and that will be a big problem. Now, visibility was down to 1/8 of a mile. For a while, the ground was white, but luckily that was a snow shower. It passed quickly. We've had off and on snow showers today. Those will end soon. The big story is the major cold weather tonight. We'll talk about that coming up later in the newscast. Scott?
Yeah. So, kind of, we have barrel going on right now. So, what's been your experience with tropical systems? I mean, we've had tropical tornadoes, which are probably the hardest ones to forecasts and stuff. But what's your experience been like?
Well, I've done. I'd like to think. I think I've retired from hurricanes. Now you've got 10,000 people. Storm chasers, and it's just like wall to wall humanity. Back in the old days, I'd do it because there weren't that many people that were willing to do it. My first one was called Hurricane Frederick in 1979. Tore up the Alabama Gulf Coast. That thing came right up Mobile Bay. This was a horrible September Cape Verde type hurricane. And that was number one. That was my first week on television here. But I've worked a bunch of them. I did Andrew, not in Florida, but in Louisiana. So I have done a number of these things on the coast. But I really think my strength is doing it here when we've got the inland impact. Birmingham is about 250 miles from the coast. And here, our issue, it's kind of like Houston. You got flooding and you got tornadoes. And today it's been interesting to watch our friends in Shreveport having to deal with, I think, 31 tornado warnings just today. And, I don't know how many of those verified. Let me just say, I'll chase a rabbit here. Our biggest problem with the weather enterprise, it's false warnings. The false alarm ratio is out of hand. And the hyperbole and the hype and everybody we got a warning addiction problem here and a hype addiction problem here that we have to get under control. If you hype up every time there's a thunderstorm, it's a life-threatening situation. Every time we hit 90, it's a heat emergency. Every time that we can't do that anymore. And we can't control what the TikTok guys and the YouTube guys do, but we can control that in the weather enterprise. And I think the first thing we have to do is reduce the number of false alarms. That's going to kill people. In some weather service offices, your false alarm ratio is 80, 85. Are you kidding? 80% of your tornado warnings are false alarms. We got to work on that. They've done a good job here in Birmingham. They've got it down to about 30, which I think is the best in the country. But the tropical tornadoes are no fun.
Yeah, I got on TikTok the other day for like 2 seconds, and the first thing I see was Barrel's going to be a Category 6, the worst hurricane ever. And I was like,
oh yeah, that look, and that's the one that's going to get 5 million views, and people believe this, and they'll follow these people like it's almost a religious type zeal. It's a really bizarre social science thing. The Category 6 hurricane lady last year, and everybody thought she's the queen. And of course, everything she said was nonsense. But again, it's a social science problem. We got a lot of communication work to do here.
Yeah. Andrew and I talk about a lot. It depends on some of the station, I guess, ownerships too. But the whole, weather day brandings and turning everything red on the screen, like a lot of times now,
that's not working. It's not working for me.
It's become to where people don't even pay attention to it anymore since it feels so repetitive.
Oh, they'll do code red weather emergency first alert days when it's foggy. And this is not the meteorologist's fault. They're under the gun from their corporate overlords to do that, thinking somehow that's going to bring people to local television news, where the truth is that's going to drive people away. They're going to be sick of it. They're just sick of this hyperbole. If you go into the Walmarts and Dollar Generals of the world where real people live that we serve, they'll tell you this stuff. You don't need a consultant for this. And, we just need to. And again, we can't control what the rogue people do on social media, but by golly, we can control the weather enterprise, and we need to do a better job of that.
Yeah, I know one of our stations close by here, they issued a weather alert day for a snowstorm about the week out. And it didn't even snow.
Yeah. And again, we can't blame the meteorologist. They're under a mandate to do that.
Right.
And here, I don't do it. If they get mad at me and fire me, they fire me. I mean, I've had a great run, but it's just I can't do that.
Yeah, I know it seems very repetitive, especially from one. I know one, I guess, media group in particular. I've got a station down there that it's to the point where I know a lot of people are like, oh, they have that every day now, the first alert weather days or the weather alert days, and it's to the point where I guess people aren't going to pay attention as much since it's, oh, they have that every day. I feel like I hear that a lot, see that a lot on social media now. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a problem. And, it's like, we just got so much work to do. People say, when are you going to retire? Never. I feel better now. I feel better than you knuckleheads. I mean, I feel better than you guys at this ripe old age, and I don't, it's like I'm blessed. I mean, most people my age, they're like senile, you know, they're like 2 blocks away from the cemetery. I'm energized. I am very energized. And as long as my physical shape and my mental state is good, the cognition, I'm going to keep working on this. And I have great hope for the future. For those that want to do what I do, the Ron Burgundy stuff will go away. That's, you know, that's a relic. But something new will come from this. And I love your generation. I love your generation. You're hard workers, you're innovative, and you're going to reinvent this. And it's going to be so much better than it used to be for what I've done for all these years. You're going to target more people and do it in a more effective way. And with threats in motion, you know, facets, the new warning systems that'll be coming out, I think it's going to be great. There'll be a lot of pain because you've got to monetize it. You can attract a gazillion eyeballs, but if you can't monetize that, what good does it do? Because you've got to pay for a graphic system, you got to pay for helicopters, you got to pay for cameras. This is expensive, what we do. And, you know, it's a balance of doing it right, monetization, and you guys will figure it out. I'm fully convinced you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I know you'll have a 6 p.m. coming up soon. So is there anything else you'd like to add and just kind of discuss here?
No, I'm glad you guys are doing this. I think it's great. I mean, I wish I had this opportunity when I was your age to do a podcast or something like this. I think it's great. The experience you'll get in communicating with real people, it's just great. So thanks to you guys for doing this. And yeah, I hate to go, but the 6 o'clock news starts now. So I got to go back in A over here. So you guys, thanks for letting me come on the show. Y'all have a great day. Okay.
Yeah,
You too. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Welcome.